royal courts of justice have lifted the anonymity order on an individual who was alleged to have been a Chinese spy, banned from the UK, and we can now name the individual as Yang Tengbo. A High Court judge has lifted the anonymity order on Yang Tengbo, an alleged Chinese spy who has been banned from the UK and is thought to have had close ties with Prince Andrew, the Duke of York. Let's bring in our Home Affairs editor, Jason Farrell, for more on this. So, Jason, look, the High Court judge has lifted this anonymity. Do we know why, and what more do we know about Yang Tengbo?
Well, we know that Yang Tengbo, he ran a company, a consultancy firm called Hampton Group International. It was an advisory group that helped with relationships between the UK and China. It put together entrepreneurs with investors, for example. Actually worked very much, he set up a scheme that worked very much in the same way as the pitch of the palace, which was Prince Andrew's scheme. So he kind of replicated that in China. So he'd had strong ties. He'd had indefinite leave to remain since 2013. He's someone who's studied here since 2002. But he had this hearing, and this is the only reason that we actually found out about him, of course, was that he appealed to the Special Immigration Appeals Commission, where all this detail came about over his relationship with Prince Andrew, and the authorities and the Secret Service's concerns about not only his relationship with Prince Andrew, but his close ties to the Communist Party in China. These images emerged of him, which I think we can now show you, of him with Prince Andrew, where he obviously appeared to have a special relationship. And that was discovered after his phone was seized when he was stopped at a port. We haven't been told which port, but he was stopped at a port and his phone was seized in November 2021. And that's when they found messages from the Duke's confidants, from the Duke's advisors. Dominic Hampshire, one advisor to the Duke, said that he sat at the very top of a tree that many people would have liked to have been on. Now, the Prince, of course, then said that he had severed his ties as soon as he'd heard about these concerns about his connections with the Communist Party. And what the Home Secretary said at the time when she expelled him was that we have reason to believe that you're engaging or have previously engaged in covert and deceptive activity on behalf of the United Front Work Department. That is an arm of the Communist Party in China, which has a remit, as she put it, to engage in political interference, targeting the UK's democratic process. So we can now name this man, Yang Tengbo, and say that he's 50 years old. He was born in China. He began his relationship with the UK when he moved here as a student in 2002, working, then going to the University of York, where he studied PR. He had previously been a civil servant in China, a junior civil servant. It was thought he would move back, but then he decided to set up this company and work on building relationships between China and British business. But of course, at some point, he forms a relationship with the Duke of York, and he gets invited to Buckingham Palace, to Windsor Castle, and St James's Palace, and even the 60th birthday of Prince Andrew. And it was thought that he was acting on behalf of Prince Andrew, contacting potential partners and investors in China.
Now, Jason, we're getting some detail coming out of the High Court. Guy Vassell-Adams, who's the KC acting for Tengbo, has told the court that there's been an enormous amount of media reporting in relation to this story, and particularly in relation to the relationship between his client, Yang Tengbo, and Prince Andrew, as well as a huge amount of speculation about Tengbo's identity. The judge, as we now understand, has lifted that anonymity on Tengbo, regardless of the arguments made in the High Court. And we can now report some more of the details, as we understand them, about Tengbo. And he was working for an organisation called the United Front Work Department. It's said to be an arm of the Chinese government, and of course, as we said, has been banned from entering the UK for a number of years. And this will, I presume, Jason, serve to complicate what is thought to be an attempt by the current government to reset relations with the Chinese state.
Well, that's right. We've heard from Keir Starmer today saying that it is a concern for him, but that it is important to maintain those relationships with China, particularly over things around the environment. And let's not forget, of course, we have a huge amount of trade with China. We import about £92 billion worth of goods from them, electronics and that sort of thing. And we also export an awful lot to them as well. Here we're just seeing a video about him. This is Yang Tengbo. As you say, he set up this company, Hampton Group, which was a consulting company trying to kind of help British businesses abroad and also help Chinese businesses get a foothold here. Where he fell down, really, when it comes to security services, is that they've said in the court hearing that the applicant had not provided a full and open account of his relationship with the Duke, which they say had a covert and clandestine element to it. And that really was the centre of the concern here, that, and as you say, his relationship with this particular arm of the Chinese Communist Party, which was involved in, as the Home Secretary put it, a remit to engage in political interference targeting the UK's democratic process, a section of the party known as the UFWD. And that, I think, the fact that he tried to play that down when evidence found on his phone suggested that he did have quite close links with that group was what was his downfall in terms of him getting expelled from the UK. I should give you probably the statement from the Duke, as we've been talking about. He said that he ceased all contact with the individual after concerns were raised. The Duke met the individual through official channels with nothing of a sensitive nature ever discussed. He is unable to comment further on matters relating to national security, the statement says. And of course, he also met Theresa May, and Baroness gave a statement saying her and her husband, Sir Philip, are photographed at numerous events in any given year. As such, she doesn't remember when or where this particular photograph was taken of the man in question. I should say that that was probably after looking at a photograph of a pixelated image, so perhaps Baroness may remember when she sees the photograph that's now available. And he also met Lord Cameron. David Cameron gave a statement as well, saying that David Cameron was leader of the Conservative Party for over a decade and PM for 6 years. He met thousands of people in that time at hundreds of functions and events. We do not have any further information about this individual. But that, I think, was at a number 10 party where they met. And he is photographed with David Cameron and his wife, Samantha, at that party. So he clearly did have quite strong penetration into the British establishment. And that is really the concern here, the permeability of the British establishment. There's that photograph now we can see of Theresa May and her husband Philip with this man, Yang Tengbo. And there's the photograph with David Cameron and Samantha Cameron, which I believe is taken at number 10, because in the court documents it talks about him meeting a businessman at number 10, or rather not in the court documents, sorry, in the profile video that we see of him. He talks about meeting a business, someone from business, and helping them with their business in the UK, make a foothold into China. So obviously weighed up in this court case was, the positive that he was bringing to British industry by making these connections. But what they were ultimately concerned about was leverage, and how the Chinese Communist Party has this kind of strategy of using leverage, whether that be dependency on Chinese funding or what they call elite capture, getting really high-profile individuals to kind of endorse the CCP aims. And certainly, for example, the documents referred to the Duke considering creating a think tank, for example, And that's one of the things that they would be concerned about, using influence and leverage to promote perhaps elements of the Communist Party in China that the UK would not like to be promoted in the UK. And as I say, particularly going back to this point from the Home Secretary about political interference and targeting the UK's democratic process. We don't have much more detail, if I'm honest, about exactly, what that might have entailed, particularly in relation to Yang Tengbo, and I think his lawyers made this point, but ultimately they felt that that connection was a danger to national security.